Hi students, good morning to one and all. Previous classes discussed about the Unit 5 cell structures and functions. The chapter names cell diet of life, biomolecules, cell cycle and cell division. Dear students, today onwards discuss about the Unit 7 plant ecology, the chapter 13 ecological adaptations. First now, what is meaning of plant ecology? By means the study of reciprocal relationship between the plants and surrounding the environment, that is called plant ecology. Who is father of plant ecology in India? That is Ramdeo Misra. And ecological plants to be communicated into the four groups levels, that is biological organisms, populations, communities and biomass. So ecological plants of including is always depend upon to the suitable for their surrounding environments. Now, using warming, a Danish botanist classified plant communities into three major ecological groups, that is hydrophytes, mesophytes and xerophytes, based on depends and relations of plants to water. Based on depends and relation of plants to water. Who is using warming? So plant communities into three major ecological groups, that is such as hydrophytes, mesophytes and xerophytes. So first now, what is meaning of hydrophytes? Some plants grown in water or very wet places or very wet conditions, that is known as hydrophytes. Given the example for here, Fischia, Nymphaea, Hydrilla, Wolffia, Eichhornia, Wallisneria and Limnophila. These are the hydrophytes. Okay now. Hydrophytes means in some plants grown in water or very wet places or very wet conditions, that is called hydrophytes. Given the examples for hydrophytes such as Fischia, Nymphaea, Hydrilla, Wallisneria, Limnophila and Wolffia, Lemna, Azula. Next, coming to what is meaning of mesophytes? Most of the plants grown on terrestrial soils, that is to be grown in medium temperatures or heavy temperatures, that is known as mesophytes. Given the examples for here, all dicotyledon plants and all monocotyledon plants, especially neem, banyan tree, mango and maize, sugarcane, wheat. Next, coming to xerophytes. In few plants grown in habitats where water is deficiency, water is not a deficiency, or soil is physiological dry. Soil is physiological dry, that is called xerophytes. That is called xerophytes. By means soil is totally physiologically dry, that is named xerophytes. Given the examples for here, Casuarina, aloe vera, Ophancia, Nerium. These are the examples for here xerophytes. Now today onwards discuss about the hydrophytes. What are hydrophytes? How many different kinds of hydrophytes given with the examples. Now dear students, hydrophytes means plants that grow in water. Plants that grow in water or in very wet places are called hydrophytes or aquatic plants. So these are further subdivided into 5 categories according to their mode of living in water. So dear students, hydrophytes is further divided into 5 categories according to their mode of living in water. So there are namely 5 categories. First one here, free floating hydrophytes. Second one here, rooted hydrophytes with floating leaves. Third one here, submerged suspended hydrophytes. Fourth one here, submerged rooted hydrophytes. Fifth one here, amphibious plants. Dear students, these are the diagrammatic representation of different kinds of plant groups, especially different kinds of hydrophytic plant groups. So in this first diagram are here free floating hydrophytes, and second diagram are here rooted hydrophytes with floating leaves. Third diagram are here submerged suspended hydrophytes. Fourth diagram here submerged rooted hydrophytes. Fifth diagram are here amphibious plants. So this is a first category of diagram. This is a second category of diagram. This is a third category of diagram. This is a fourth category of diagram. This is a fifth category of diagram. Discuss about one by one. Now first one here, free floating hydrophytes. So dear students, free floating hydrophytes, given the example for here Pistia, Lemna and Salvinia. These are the best examples for here free floating hydrophytes. Dear students, this is a free floating hydrophyte, that is Pistia. So characters are here. These have no contact with the soil and thus float freely on water surface. So Pistia is generally free float on the water surface. So there is no contact with the soil. So roots are present, and at the same time, so at the tip of the root containing root pockets, not root caps, only containing root pockets. That is the free floating hydrophytes. Okay now, free floating hydrophytes, given the examples for here Pistia, Lemna and Salvinia, but here the best example are here Pistia. So dear students, this is a elongated internode, that is named offset, and surrounded by rosette leaves. These are the rosette leaves, and having the several adventitious roots. Okay now, several adventitious roots. So these roots are containing root packets. That is named balancing roots. These are the balancing roots. So dear students, in generally one elongated internode length, that is called offset, and surrounded by two nodes. So above the node would be containing rosette leaves, and below the node containing balancing roots. So these are the balancing roots, one type of adventitious roots, and these balancing roots containing only root packets. So here these have no contact with soil, freely floating on the water. So it does float freely on water surface. Next, coming to second one here, rooted hydrophytes with floating leaves. Given the examples for here Nymphaea and Victoria regia. The best example are here Nymphaea. This is a Nymphaea diagram. So dear students, what are the character features of rooted hydrophytes with floating leaves? So dear students, root of these are fixed to substratum. So roots, these are the roots. So these roots is always fixed to the substratum or fixed to be mud. mud. So this is a stem of the rhizome. Dear students, nymphaea containing stem of the rhizome. That is underground stem is modified to rhizome. In this nymphaea, the underground stem is modified to rhizome, and in this rhizome would be containing smaller size of the roots. So these roots is always attached to the substratum or attached to the mud. Attached to the mud. So roots of these are fixed to substratum or mud, but they containing long pitules. But they containing long pitules. Containing long pitules, and long petiolate leaves keep them floating on water surface. So in generally in most of the mesophytic plants and xerophytic plants, petiole is smaller in size, but the nymphaea and Victorioregia, the petiole is longer in size. So the leaves are having to longer size of the petiole. So yearly keep on the upper of the water surface. They is shown on the water surface. They are floating on water surface. Easily they are floating on water surface. Okay, now dear students, this is a underground rhizome and containing roots and containing leaves and also buds and also flowers. The main importance are here. So longer size of the petiole containing, and then after the upper surface of the leaves is freely floating on the water surface. Freely floating on the water surface. And also upper surface of the leaves is also containing one waxy coat. Next coming to third one here, submerged suspensor hydrophytes. Given the examples for here, Hydrilla and Utricularia. Dear students, the best example are here Hydrilla. This is a Hydrilla. Okay now. So dear students, these have contact only with water. So totally plant contact with water and being completely submerged. By means at the bottom of the water. And not rooted in the mud. So there is no roots are present in the Hydrilla. After some time, so these leaves are modified to branched roots. Some of the leaves are modified to branched roots. First early stage of the Hydrilla not would be containing roots. That is a submerged suspensed hydrophytes. So Hydrilla and also Utricularia is also grown in bottom of the water or submerged water. There is no leaves. There is no roots. Leaves are present, but roots are absent. So after some time, so lower leaves modified to roots. So this is a Hydrilla. And next coming to fourth one here, submerged rooted hydrophytes. Given the examples are here Wallisneria. The best examples are here Wallisneria. So dear students, these are completely submerged in water. By means these are completely grown in bottom of the water and attached to the substratum by their root system. Attached to the mud by with the help of root system. So dear students, Wallisneria is also containing underground stem, that is rhizome, and rhizome would be containing roots and ripple-like structure of the stems, and leaves are present. Ripple-like structure of the leaves are present, and totally plant body is modified ripple-like structure. So some of them are here containing male flowers, and some of them are containing female flowers. That is the importance of Wallisneria. Okay now. Next fifth one here, amphibious plants. The best example are here Sagittaria and Typha and Limnophila. The best example are here Limnophila. So dear students, So these live partially in water and partially in air. Partially in air. So in these plants to grow. So partially in water and partially in air. The plant body exists. Some of them grown in water and some of them grown in air. That is amphibious plants. Amphibious plants. So totally plant body not grown in water. So 75% of the plant body grown in water and 25% of the plant body grown in air. Grown in air. That is amphibious plants. That is amphibious plants. So in this plants it will be containing roots and also submerged discussed leaves, submerged dissected leaves and also aerial leaves. These are the 5 categories of hydrophytes. 5 categories of hydrophytes. 5 categories of hydrophytes according to their mode of living in water. Their mode of living in water. So these are the hydrophytes. So dear students, the question are here. What are hydrophytes? So given the different kinds of hydrophytes with the given examples. So here 5 categories are here. So these are the free-floating hydrophytes, rooted hydrophytes with floating leaves, submerged suspended hydrophytes, submerged rooted hydrophytes, and amphibious plants. So this is about the hydrophytes, that is what are hydrophytes. Give the different kinds of hydrophytes with an examples. This question is very important in IPA pattern. Okay, now thank you. Hi students, previous classes discussed about the what are hydrophytes, what is classified different kinds of hydrophytes with the examples. So today onwards discuss about the morphological adaptations in hydrophytes. That is ecological adaptations in hydrophytes, such as morphological adaptations. Second one is anatomical adaptations. So now first one, morphological adaptations in hydrophytes. In generally, hydrophytes are growing water or very wet places or conditions. That is known as hydrophytes or aquatic plants Hydrophytes other name are here aquatic plants. Okay now. So dear students, so in morphological adaptations in hydrophytes, these are the hydrophytic plants or aquatic plants such as Fistia, Nymphaea, Hydrilla, Vallisneria, Limnophila. So these are the best examples for hydrophytes or aquatic plants. So dear students, to be observed in hydrophytic plants of root system and stem system and leaves. Only external morphological adaptations. So roots are present or absent. In each type of root system are present. Stems are large or shorter. Leaves are simple leaves or compound leaves. Leaves are smaller in size or longer in size. Now, first one here. In generally, hydrophytic plants or aquatic plants, roots may be absent, especially in hydrilla. So the first one here, roots may be absent. So especially hydrilla in early stage of hydrilla not would be containing roots. After maturity period, so some of the lower leaves are modified to roots, are poorly developed in some plants, So especially submerged leaves. So compensate for roots. So in especially hydrilla, submerged leaves in compensate of the roots. Okay. Next coming. So in generally all angiospermic plants, the tip of the root containing root caps. But here in hydroponic plants not containing root caps. Now here root caps are usually offset. In all aquatic plants or in all hydroponic plants, root caps are totally offset. However, in some amphibious plants, such as Limnophila and Sagittaria and Typhon. What is the meaning of amphibious plants? In some hydroponic plants are grown in partially water and partially in air. That is called amphibious plants, such as Limnophila, Sagittaria and Typhon. The best example are here Limnophila. So now amphibious plants which grow in mud, roots are well developed with distinct root caps. Only some of the plant body, 75% of the plant body are grown in water, and out of 25% of the plant body totally fully developed into the mud. So in this time, so these roots are having to root caps. Root caps, especially in Limnophila. These are the roots and this one root caps. One thimble-like structure, that is called the root cap. In generally, all aquatic plants are hydroponic plants. Root caps is replaced by root packets. But here, one of the amphibious plants, the best example are here Typhon, Sagittaria and Limnophila. So this plant grown in water and air, and first of all to be developed totally mud. So these roots are grown in mud. So the mud of the roots end of the root containing root caps. Next coming to in some plants, especially free-floating hydrophytes. Such as Fistia and Eichhornia. This is a Fistia. So dear students, in some plants, that is free-floating hydrophytes, such as Fistia and Eichhornia, root caps are replaced by root packets. Root caps is totally absent. Roots are present. So these roots are here one type of advantageous roots. So these advantageous roots to be make a balancing roots. So these balancing roots are tip of the roots to be containing the root packets, not root caps. So root caps are replaced by root packets. These root packets are help is always freely floating on the water surface. Okay. Next coming to roots, if present, are generally fibrous and advantageous. So in some aquatic plants or hydroponic plants, roots is also present. So these roots are here fibrous roots or adventitious roots. Fibrous roots are adventitious roots. So these roots reduced in length. These roots reduced in length. That is shorter in size. That is shorter in size and unbranched and poorly branched. Most of the unbranched. Most of the unbranched. Sometimes poorly branched. Sometimes poorly branched. These are the hydrophytic or aquatic root characters. Aquatic root characters. Next, coming to stem. In aquatic plants or hydrophytic plants, stem is long. Stem is long. This is a stem. Okay, now stem is long. Stem is long and slender and flexible. Stem is long and slender, smoothly and flexible and flexible. Okay, now these are the characters in stem. Stem is long, slender and flexible. But here, especially in free floating of hydrophytes, that is Pistia and Eichhornia, one long elongated internode. One long elongated internode, that is called offset. This is a long internode. These are the nodes. Two nodes between one internode. Two nodes. This is one node. This is second node. This is first node. This is second node. Two nodes between of the one internode. This internode is always elongated, especially Pistia and Eichhornia. Free floating hydrophytes. Given the example are here, Pistia and Eichhornia. So this stem containing nodes and internodes, two nodes between one internode. This internode is long, that is elongated, that is named offset. And nodes above the nodes to be containing rosette leaves, and below the balancing roots. Below the balancing roots. Next, coming to leaves. Leaves are thin. Leaves, all leaves are thin. These are the leaves. These are the leaves. In generally, leaves all are thin and either long. Either long. Leaves are thin, either long. And ribbon shape. Sometimes some of the aquatic plants leaves are ribbon shape. These are the ribbon shaped leaves. This is a stem. That is underground stem. This is the 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 underground stem. Okay, now underground stem is modified to rhizome. So these are the leaves. In some plants, leaves are thin and long and ribbon-like structure. Ribbon-like structure. And long or linear, finally dissected. Finally dissected. These are the dissected leaves. Submerged dissected leaves. Especially amphibious plants shown in Limnophila. Limnophila will be containing dissected leaves, submerged dissected leaves. Submerged dissected leaves. So these are the submerged dissected leaves. So these are the aerial leaves. Submerged dissected leaves are here. Leaves are curve-like structures. Leaves are curve-like structures. Leaves apex is always curve-like structures. Leaves curves is always curve-like structures. Leaves apex is always curve-like structures. Leaves apexes is always curve-like structures. And floating leaves. These are the floating leaves, especially Nymphaea and also Neelambo. So Nymphaea and Neelambo. Floating leaves are large. Floating leaves are larger in size and flat with upper surfaces coat. So flat with the upper surfaces coat with the wax. Especially Nymphaea can have into larger size of the picture and tip of the picture containing a larger size of the leaves. These leaves are thin and this leaves of upper surface will be containing one wax. It will be containing one wax. Upper surface of the leaves will be containing wax. This is upper surface, this is the lower surface. But only upper surface. Only upper surface of the leaves will be containing wax. So hence water droplets clearly shown on upper surface of the leaves. Some of the water droplets droplets clearly shown on the upper surface of the leaves. Why? Because those upper surface of the leaves will be containing one waxy content. So hence some of the water droplets are clearly shown, and shining of the water droplets are appeared in the upper surface of the leaves, that is Nymphaea leaves or Neelambo leaves. Nymphaea leaves or Neelambo leaves. This is about the morphological adaptations in hydrophytes, such as hydrophytic plants of root characters, stem characters, and leaves characters. The question are here: enumerate the morphological adaptations in hydrophytes. Okay, now fine. Hi students, good morning to one and all. Previous classes we discussed about the what are hydrophytes, what is the different kinds of hydrophytes, given the examples, and eliminated of the morphological adaptations of xerophytes, that is ecological adaptations such as morphological adaptations of xerophytes. Now today onwards discuss about the another ecological adaptation, that is anatomical adaptations in hydrophytes. Anatomical adaptations in hydrophytes, that is clearly shown on internal adaptations in hydrophytes. Dear students, this is one diagrammatic representation of transverse section or internal structure of hydrilla stem. Internal structure of hydrilla stem. In generally, every root, every stem will be containing mainly three parts. The first part are here epidermis. This is a epidermis. The second part are here cortex. The third part are here stele. In most of the all higher plants, including gymnosperms and angiosperms, such as dicotyledons and monocotyledons, including all aquatic plants, such as hydrophytic plants, the root and the stem, the TS of root or the TS of stem, or the internal structure of root and the internal structure of stem will be containing mainly three parts. They are namely first part epidermis, second part cortex, third part stele. So, but here in most of the all higher plants, including gymnosperms and angiosperms, the well developed epidermis, the well developed cortex, and very well developed stele or vascular bundles. But here in aquatic plants or hydrophytic plants, to be developed epidermis, cortex, but not well developed stele or vascular bundle. Xylem is poorly developed, but phloem is better developed. But here xylem is poorly developed, so not well developed stele or not well developed vascular bundle. In generally, the vascular bundle containing xylem and phloem, these are known as vascular tissues. Vascular tissues. Okay. So dear students, cuticle is totally absent in the submerged parts of the plants. Generally, in all higher plants of the gymnosperms and angiosperms, the epidermis is covered by a protective layer that is called cuticle. Epidermis is a generally single layer covered by one cuticle layer. But here in all aquatic plants and hydrophytic plants, cuticle is totally absent. Okay now. In all most of the higher plants such as angiosperms and gymnosperms, the epidermis is covered by cuticle. But here aquatic plants and hydrophytic plants, especially submerged plants, the cuticle is totally absent. Only epidermis is a single layer, not covered by cuticle. Okay now. Cuticle is totally absent in the submerged parts of the plants. It may be present as very fine film on the surface of parts that are exposed to Sometimes some of the plants are covered by small, so small very fine film on the surface of the pods. This surface of the pods is always exposed to atmosphere. Is always exposed to atmosphere. In generally, most of the aquatic plants, the epidermis is not covered by cuticle. In sometimes, some of the aquatic plants, epidermis is covered by very fine film. So this fine film is always exposed to atmosphere. Exposed to atmosphere. So next one, thin-walled epidermal cells. This is a single-layered thin-walled epidermal cells. This is a epidermal cells. So epidermal cells is always thin-walled layers. What are the use of epidermal cells? Thin-walled epidermal cells help in absorption and exfoliation by having chloroplast. So in generally, the leaves of the basophil cells would be containing chloroplast in most of the air plants. But here in especially hydroponic plants or aquatic plants, the epidermis would be containing chloroplast. So hence easily absorption and exfoliation to the synthesis of food materials. In the epidermis. And stomata are totally offset. In generally, most of the all air plants, the stem of the epidermis or the leaves of the epidermis will be containing small pore-like structures. That is known as stomata. Each stomata consisting of two parts. One is guard cells, second one is subcellulary cells. One guard cell and two subcellulary cells are to be making one stomata. Well, what are the using of stomata? Stomata is always gases exchange to be outer to inner side. So to be passing through the is always gases exchange. That is the importance of stomata. But here in all aquatic plants, stomata is totally offset. Stomata are totally offset. In submerged forms are non-functional as in photomyceton. Photomyceton, that is amphibious plants. So dear students, stomata are totally offset. But how do gases exchange? So in this time with the help of thin-walled epidermal cells is also exchange of the gases. In generally, stomata are totally offset. In all higher plants, the stomata is always gases exchange by means exchange of CO2 and exchange of O2. So in this time, all aquatic plants, the stomata are totally offset. So hence the thin-walled epidermal cells is always passing through the gases by the diffusion process. So next coming to the floating leaves. The floating leaves, especially Nilamu, possess stomata only on the upper surface. In generally, all air plants, the epidermal cells would be containing stomata, and all air plants of the leaves, that is upper epidermis and lower epidermis, would be containing stomatas. So two types of stomatas are present in higher plants of the leaves. In generally, higher plants of the stomata containing only one type of epidermis, so hence one type of stomata. But all higher plants of the leaves would be containing upper surface and lower surface, that is upper epidermis and lower epidermis. Okay now? Upper epidermis would be containing stomatas, lower epidermis would be containing stomatas. But especially aquatic plants, that is the floating leaves of Nilamu. The floating leaves of Nilamu only containing only one type of stomata. These stomatas are present only upper surface. Stomatas only present in upper surface of the leaves, that is known as epistomatas. If the stomatas are also present in lower epidermis or lower surface, that is known as hypostomatas. But here especially in free-floating of the Nilamo would be containing only upper surface of the stomata, that is epistomatas. Epistomatas. By means stomatas are present only upper surface of the leaves, that is known as epistomatas. If the stomatas are present in lower surface of the leaves, that is known as hypostomatas. Hypostomatas. Next, coming to mechanical tissues. In generally all higher plants, the plant body is made up of parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. In any early stage of the higher plants, the plant body totally made up of parenchyma, so hence is always dedicated and smoothly. And after maturity period, the plant body of branches and the total entire plant body is made up of sclerenchyma and collenchyma, so hence totally woody and strongly and hardly. Okay, now by means all higher plants first of all to be developed parenchyma, after become maturity period to be developed collenchyma and sclerenchyma, the parts of the plant body. But here in all aquatic plants, all hydroponic plants, so totally sclerenchyma and collenchyma totally absent. These are the mechanical tissues. These mechanical tissues is always to be gives a mechanical support or mechanical strength. For example, neem plant and banyan plant and also mango plant will be containing the plant body, and plant body branches will be containing collenchyma and sclerenchyma. This collenchyma and sclerenchyma are totally to be give a mechanical support in their plant body and in their plant body branches. But here in all aquatic plants, plant body in early stage and maturity stage totally developed body made up of parenchyma, not developed mechanical tissues. So not developed sclerenchyma and collenchyma, totally developed parenchyma. So hence is always all aquatic plant bodies of Hydrilla, Vallisneria, Pistia and Limnophila, Utricularia. So totally plant body is very smoothly or very delicate. Why? Because plant body is made up of parenchyma. In all aquatic plants or hydroponic plants, plant body is totally made up of parenchyma in early stage or maturity stage. So hence is always smoothly and delicate, totally absent in sclerenchyma and collenchyma. These are the mechanical tissues. Two are mechanical tissues like collenchyma and sclerenchyma are absent. So because the plants are not exposed to stress and strain, this plant is not exposed to stress and strain. Why? Because poorly developed mechanical tissues is always to be grown in water. And water is absorbed through all over the surface of the plant body. In generally all higher plants, the roots absorb by water and mineral nutrients from the soil. But here all higher plants grown in normal temperature or normal soils. So to be receiving of the water and mineral nutrients. But all aquatic plants and all hydroponic plants generally grown in water. So hence in this time, so all over the plant body easily absorption of the water and mineral nutrients. So hence the xylem is reduced or fully developed, but phloem is relatively better developed. So dear students, water is absorbed through all over the surface of the plant body. Why? Because this is a aquatic plant grown in water. So the xylem is fully developed but phloem is relatively better developed. In generally, xylem and phloem is also known as vascular tissues. The vascular tissues of xylem is always absorption of water and mineral nutrients from the root, then after to be transferred all over the plant body. Phloem is also transported of food materials from leaves to all over the plant body. So in this time, these plants generally grown in water. So there is no using of xylem. Why? Because this is a hydroponic plant. So water and mineral nutrients is also absorbed all over the plant body of the parts. So hence xylem is not developed, xylem is not functioning. Okay now. Water is absorbed through all over the surface of the plant body. So the xylem is fully developed. So the xylem is totally reduced. But phloem is relatively better developed. Phloem is better developed. So dear student, this is a epidermis, this is a cortex. Epidermis is single layered and thin walled, not covered by cuticle. This is a cortex. Cortex is 2 or more layers. And the cortex is below the totally parenchyma. Some of the cortical cells are developed larger in size and fulfilled with air. So to be appeared balloon-like structures. So hence in this time these plants is generally free-floating on the water surface. Why? Because some of the cortical cells totally fulfilled with air, and fulfilled with gases. That is the importance of parenchyma. In generally, all aquatic plants, plant body is made up of parenchyma, and also the plant body of cells totally made up of parenchyma. So hence in this time, the cortex is 2 or more layers. Some of the cortex or some of the cortical layers is also fulfilled with air, are also fulfilled with gases. So hence these cells are to be appeared balloon-like structure and fulfilled with gases. So easily these plants easily to be free-floating on the water surface. That is parenchyma, and this is a stele. So this stele consisting of xylem cavities and phloem. That is xylem is fully developed and phloem is relatively better developed. Next coming to parenchyma is present. Parenchyma is present in all parts of the hydrophytes. Parenchyma is modified parenchyma. So this parenchyma is totally filled with air or gases. So hence the namely parenchyma. Parenchyma is present in all parts of all hydrophytes. Provides a buoyancy. To be give a mechanical support and easily free-floating on the water surface. All aquatic plants and all hydrophytic plants is always easily free-floating on the water surface. Why? Because we containing parenchyma. That is provide a buoyancy. Parenchyma. All aquatic hydrophytic plants of the plant body is made up of one type of parenchyma. This parenchyma is always fulfilled with air or gases. That is named parenchyma. This parenchyma to be provide a buoyancy by means free-floating on the water surfaces. All aquatic plants easily free-floating on the water surfaces. That is the importance of buoyancy. So dear students, this is about the types of hydrophytes or kinds of hydrophytes and morphological adaptation of hydrophytes and anatomical adaptations in hydrophytes. Okay, now thank you. Hi students, good morning to one and all. Previous classes discussed about the hydrophytes. What are the characteristic features of hydrophytes? How many different types of hydrophytes? And what are the morphological adaptations in hydrophytes? And what are the anatomical adaptations in hydrophytes? Now today we are going to discuss about the xerophytes. That is a classification of xerophytes. What is the meaning of xerophytes? Dear students, plants grow in habitats where water supply is deficient and the soil is physiologically dry. That is called xerophytes. Dear students, these are xerophytic plants such as Ophorsia, Aloe, Casuarina, Nerium, as well as Bryophyllum, Ceiba, Asparagus, and Tribulus. These are xerophytes. xerophytes can grow in habitats where water supply is inefficient and soil is physiologically dry. Soil is physiologically dry. That is called xerophytes. So no need of water in those of plants, but in rainy season to be absorption of water and thereafter to be stored in their water molecules for their future purpose. Anyhow, xerophytes can grow in habitats where water supply inefficient and soil is physiologically dry. That is called xerophytes. Dear students, xerophytes are three types based on morphology, physiology and life cycle pattern. Based on morphology, what is the character features of root, what is the character features of stem, what is the character features of leaves, and physiology, what is the response for photosynthesis, what is the response for respiration, and life cycle pattern. Some of them annual plants, some of them biennial plants, and some of them perennial plants. That is based on morphology, physiology, and life cycle pattern. So the first xerophytes are here ephemerals. The second type of xerophytes are here succulents. The third type of xerophytes are here non-succulents. Dear students, ephemerals. So these are annuals. By means life cycle is completed only 1 year. Below the 12 months, 8 months, 6 months, or 2 to 4 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. Okay, now these are animals which complete their life cycle within 6 to 8 weeks. 6 to 8 weeks. So they are also called drought avoiders and drought escapers. Drought avoiders and drought escapers. Given the example for here, tribulus, that is palleru. Okay, now these are animals by means lifespan or life cycle is completed only 1 year, but here we complete their life cycle within 6 to 8 weeks. Only 6 to 8 weeks, approximately 4 months. Okay, no? Or 2 or 3 months. They are also called drought evaders and drought escapers. Drought escapers. Second type are here succulents. So these are drought evading plants. So they absorb large amount of water during rainy seasons and store in their pods. So in the form of mucilages. So those pods become fleshy and succulent. Especially aloe vera. So these are drought evading plants. They absorb large amount of water, Opuntia and aloe vera. So they absorb large amount of water during rainy seasons and store in their pods. Opuntia in pillowclades, aloe vera in leaves. Store in their pods in the form of mucilages. So the storage of water in the form of mucilage cavity or mucilages, and those pods become fleshy. That is leaves and pillowclades are totally fleshy and succulent. Stored water used during dry periods. That is especially summer season. Especially to be using of the summer season in Opuntia and also aloe vera, as well as Casuarina. Okay, no, as well as asparagus, especially asparagus, Opuntia and aloe vera. the root is also stored large amount of water. The root is also stored large amount of water in rainy season and to be used water during dry periods. Especially roots. Roots to be storage of water molecules. That is root succulents. Root succulents given examples for here ceiba and asparagus. The ceiba and asparagus roots is also storage of water in their roots to be using dry periods. And stem succulents given examples are here Opuntia. So in generally Opuntia the stem look like of leaf-like structure, that is called pillowclades. So this is a stem, generally stem, but stem appeared to be leaf-like structure, that is flat and leaf-like structure, that is pillowclades. These are leaves. Leaves are modified to spines. Leaves are modified to spines. So here, so in Opuntia, the pillowclades to be stored waters materials and to after to be using dry periods. To after to be using dry periods, that is Opuntia. That is stem succulents. Stem succulents given example are here Opuntia. This is a diagrammatic representation of Opuntia. So these are pillowclades. Pillowclades means stem is modified to leaf-like structure. That is stem is modified to green plus a flattened structure. Stem is modified to green plus a flattened structure. That is called pillowclades. But here leaves are modified to spines. Leaves are modified to spines. And next coming to leaf succulents. Example bryophyllum and aloe. So generally in bryophyllum and aloe, so leaf storage of water and then after to be by using dry periods, summer season. So hence leaf is always so succulents. Leaf is always fleshy and succulents. Leaf is always fleshy and succulents. Roots is also fleshy and succulents. Asparagus. Stem is also fleshy and succulents. Opuntia. Leaves is also fleshy and succulents in aloe vera. In ceiba and asparagus, the root is also fleshy succulents. Why? Because these roots is also stored water materials and then after by using dry periods. Okay, now in Opuntia, so the stem is fleshy succulents. Why? Because the stem of pillowclade is always store water materials. Then be using dry periods. And in bryophyllum and aloe, the leaf is always fleshy and succulents. Why? Because due to storage of water materials by using in dry periods. By using in dry periods, that is summer season. Storage of water in rainy season and by using of the water in dry season, that is summer season. Next coming to third one, non-succulents. So non-succulents, the best examples are here Casuarina and Nerium. And succulents, the best examples are here Opuntia and aloe. Opuntia, that is Brahmajavudu. Aloe, that is Kalabanda. And non-succulents, these are true xerophytes. These are true xerophytes and these are perennials. Perennials means lifespan or life cycle is completed more than 2 years. That is called perennials and withstand prolonged period of drought. Withstand prolonged period of drought. So many years to be droughted. So many years by using of the water. So many years to be storage of the water. So totally grown in dry areas. Dry areas. Example Casuarina, that is Saduru. Nerium, that is Ganneru. So this is a diagram representation of Casuarina. This is a diagram representation of Nerium. So this is a xerophytes and the classification of xerophytes. Okay, now thank you. Hi students, previous classes discussed about the write a brief account on classification of xerophytes. Xerophytes means some plants grown in habitats such as where water indeficient and soil is physiologically dry, that is called xerophytes. These xerophytes are maybe three types. They are namely, first one epimerals, second one succulents, third one non-succulents. That is epimerals of xerophytes. Given the example for here, tribulus. Second one, succulents of xerophytes. Given the examples for here, root succulents, that is sea bark and asparagus. Second one, stem succulents, that is Opuntia. Third one, leaf succulents, that is Bryophyllum and aloe. Third one here, non-succulents of xerophytes, that is Nerium and also Casuarina. Now students, today we are going to discuss about the morphological adaptations in xerophytes. Dear students, these are different types of xerophytic plants such as Opuntia, aloe, Casuarina and Nerium. These plants are generally grown in soil deficiency or soil physiologically to be dry areas, that is grown in xerophytic plants. So mainly water is indeficient, water supply is indeficient, not essential for required of water. Okay now. So morphological adaptations in xerophytes. So what are the morphological characters such as root, stem and leaves? So dear students, these are the roots and stems and also leaves. First so in xerophytic plants, roots are long. In xerophytic plants, roots are long with extensive branching spread over wide areas, and the root ends and the root caps are very well developed. Root ends and root caps are very well developed. But in hydrophytic plants, so some of the free-floating hydrophytic plants, so the balancing roots are not containing root caps is replaced by root packets. But here in xerophytic plants, all are the Opuntia, aloe vera, Casuarina, Nerium and also Calotropis and also Tribulus. Root ends and the root caps are very well developed. Very well development of root ends and also root caps. Okay now. Next coming to stems. Stems are stunted, woody. Stems are stunted by means hardly and smaller in size. Hardly, thicker and smaller in size. So stems are stunted, woody, hard and covered with thick bark. Especially Nerium stem and Casuarina stem covered with bark. One dead organism of product layer. That is covered by stem. One dead product layer to be covered within the stem. That is bark. Stems are stunted, woody, hard and covered with thick bark. So thick bark are clearly shown in Casuarina as well as Nerium. Okay now. And stems are usually covered by aids. And are waxy containing, especially Calotropis. So the stems are covered by one waxy coating. See here, Calotropis. And next coming to leaves. Leaves are very much reduced. Leaves are very much reduced. Leaves. These are the leaves. And these are also leaves. So this type of leaves very okay. Very well developed leaves. In aloe vera and neem, leaves are very well developed. But Bophanetia and Casuarina, leaves are reduced. These are leaves, but leaves are reduced. All are xeropodic plants. So some of the xeropodic plants, especially aloe, the leaves are very well developed. Plus C. Okay, and also succulents. And in neem, the leaves are very well developed. Plus C and also plus C. But here non-succulents, but leaves are very well developed, flat and like a structure. In aloe vera and neem, both leaves are fleshy and also succulented or non-succulented, but both are flat and like structures. Is carry out photosynthesis and also green in color. So these are two normal leaves, especially in aloe vera and neem. Leaves are in generally flat and like structure, green in color, to be carry out photosynthesis and to be make a own their food material. But in some xeropodic plants, especially Bophanetia and also Casuarina, Bophanetia, this is not a leaf, but this is one type of stem. So stem is also generally stem is brown in color, but here stem is also green in color and leaf like structure to be appeared flat and like structure. So hence the name is phylloclades. And but here these are the leaves. So these leaves are reduced. And Casuarina, this is a stem. And these are the branches. And these are the leaves. So these leaves also reduced to be appeared spine-like structures. To be appeared scale-like structures. To be appeared scale-like structures. To be appeared spines-like structures. Okay, now leaves are very much reduced, smaller in size. And scale, especially Casuarina, scale like Casuarina, especially the leaves are scale like structures and sometimes modified into spines, especially Bophanetia. The leaves are modified to spines. So what are the use of spines? To reduce the rate of transpiration. Reduce the rate of transpiration by means to loss of water through the spines. To loss of water through the spines. That is the importance of spines. So in some of them xeropodic plants such as Bophanetia and Casuarina, so leaves are small in size and reduced. By means leaves are modified to spines in Bophanetia and leaves are modified to scales in Casuarina. Both are the leaves. Okay now, but Bophanetia, the stem is to be appeared leaf-like structure and flattened structure, that is named phylloclade. But Casuarina, this is also stem, but covered with one bark, thick bark, and these are the branches, and branches are longer and smaller in size, and to be developed scale-like leaves. To be developed scale-like leaves. Okay now, so these are the some morphological adaptations in xerophytes, such as xerophyte plants, especially Bophanetia, aloe vera, Casuarina, and neem. Okay, now thank you. Hi students, previous classes discussed about the write a brief account on classification of xerophytes and enumerate the morphological adaptations of xerophytes. Today onwards discuss about the give in detail account of anatomical adaptations in xerophytes. That is anatomical adaptations in xerophytes. Dear students, anatomical structure, that is internal parts of the plant body, clearly shown on transverse section of root, transverse section of stem, transverse section of leaf, that is TS of root, TS of stem, TS of leaf. Anyhow, In xeropodic plants of TS of root, TS of stem and TS of leaves containing three main parts. The first main part are here epidermis. Second main part are here cortex in roots and stems, but here in leaves cortex is replaced by mesophyll cells. Third main parts in roots, stems and leaves, that is stele or vascular bundles. Dear students, any higher plants or any lower plants and any hydrophytic or aquatic plants, the roots, the stems and the leaves would be containing or consisting of mainly three parts. They are namely epidermis, cortex, stele or vascular bundles. But here especially in hydrophytic plants, the stele of phloem is related better, well developed, but xylem is poorly developed. Why? Because all hydrophytic plants are grown in generally water. So in those of plants, so the water easily absorption all over the surface of the plant body. So hence xylem is totally reduced. So all hydrophytic plants, the xylem is reduced. Why? Because so all over the surface of the plant body to be easily absorption of water and mineral nutrients. Why? Because these plants are generally grown in water. Okay now? So today we are going to discuss about the anatomical adaptations in xerophytes. Dear students, epidermis is covered by thick cuticle to reduce transpiration. In generally in hydrophytic plants or aquatic plants, the epidermis is not covered by cuticle. By means cuticle is totally absent. Okay, but here in xerophytic plants, epidermis is covered by thick cuticle. Cuticle is present. What is the function of cuticle? So to reduce transpiration by means loss of water and mineral nutrients, especially loss of water. So that is transpiration. Next, coming to epidermal cells are thick walled. Epidermal cells are generally thick walled in hydrophytic plants, all over the xerophytic plants, and may have silica crystals. Especially nerium plants, the epidermal cells would be containing silica crystals. Generally all xerophytic plants, epidermal cells is thick walls and covered by cuticle. Cuticle is always reduced transpiration. At the same would be containing silica crystals. Okay now. Next, coming to multi-layered epidermis is present as leaves of nerium. In generally all over the plants, the epidermis is a single layer. In TS of root, in TS of stem, but here in TS of leaves, all dicotyledon plants, all monocotyledon plants, all hydrophytic plants, epidermis are of two types in leaves. One is upper epidermis, another one is lower epidermis. Upper epidermis and lower epidermis. But especially in xerophytic plants, so the upper epidermis is a multi-layer. This is a lower epidermis, this is a upper epidermis. In generally all plants of the leaves, two types of epidermis, upper epidermis and lower epidermis. Upper epidermis is a single layer and lower epidermis is a single layer. but here especially in xerophytic plants can be clearly shown on medium leaf. Especially the upper epidermis is multi-layer, by means more than 2 layers, that is a multi-layer. But lower epidermis is single layer, but especially upper epidermis not covered single layer, more than 2 layers, up to 6 to 7 layers, okay, no? Multi-layer, that is multiple epidermis is present as leaves of nerium. This is very important over here, especially in nerium. The epidermis is multi-layer, more than 2 layers. In generally all plants of leaves would be containing 2 types of epidermis. Okay, now one is upper epidermis and second one is lower epidermis. But here both epidermis are single layer. But especially in xerophytic plants of the nerium leaf would be containing a multi-layered epidermis, especially upper epidermis. Next, coming to leaves and stem of Calotropis consist of waxy coating. Calotropis is also one of the xerophytic plants. The stem and also leaves would be containing a waxy coating and also to be produced one milky content, that is latex. So Calotropis of the picture, the leaf of the picture can be separated by the stem of the Calotropis. So in this stem to be produced one milky waxy content. Okay, now leaves and stem of Calotropis consist of waxy coating. At the same time, to be produced one milky content. That is one type of latex. But this is very harmful and very poisonous. This latex is. Next, coming to stomata are generally confined to lower epidermis of leaves. That is called hypostomatas. In generally, stomatas are absent in roots, but sometimes stomatas are present in stems. But especially stomatas are seen here all plants of the leaves, both upper epidermis of the leaves and lower epidermis of the leaves. But here especially in xerophytic plants of the leaves, so stomata are generally confined to lower epidermis. Stomatas are mainly present in xerophytic plants of the lower epidermis leaves, that is called hypostomatas. By means stomatas only present in lower epidermis, that is hypostomatas. Stomatas is only present in upper epidermis, that is epistomatas, especially in some of the hydrophytic plants. In some of the hydrophytic plants, the stomatas are appeared upper epidermis, that is called epistomatas. But here in xerophytic plants of the leaves, the stomatas mainly clearly shown of the lower epidermis, that is called hypostomatas. And at the same time present in fits, that is sunken stomatas. Lined with aids. Sunken stomatas are also having to the aids, that is nerium, especially nerium leaves. Okay, now so nerium leaves are also containing multi-layered epidermis. The nerium leaves is also containing multi-layered epidermis, and the nerium leaves is also containing hypostomatas and with present in sunken stomata, and sunken stomata with present in lined with aids. These are the important character features of the nerium leaf. Multi-layered epidermis is present nerium leaves. Hypostomatas are present in nerium leaf. Sunken stomatas are present in nerium leaf, and sunken stomata are having to lined with aids. That is nerium leaf. These are the important character features of the nerium. Next, coming to mesophyll in leaves is very well differentiated into polysaccharides and spongy parenchyma. Dear students, in generally the TS of root, the TS of stem, any plants, the epidermis is below the several layer of cortex, then after to be steel, but especially in all plants of the leaves would be containing mesophyll cells between of the epidermis and steel, epidermis and steel. In generally, in roots, in stems, epidermis is below the cortex, then after below the steel. But here most of the all higher plants and all lower plants first begin to epidermis is below the mesophyll cells. How to form of mesophyll cells? By means the leaves are containing two types of epidermis. One is upper epidermis and another one is lower epidermis. This is upper epidermis and this is a lower epidermis. Upper epidermis is below the palisade parenchyma and lower epidermis above the spongy parenchyma. So upper epidermis is below the palisade parenchyma and lower epidermis is above the spongy parenchyma. The palisade parenchyma and spongy parenchyma both are constituted within the mesophyll cells. Within the mesophyll cells. So dear students, mesophyll cells are present in plant of the TS of leaf. Mesophyll cells are totally absent in TS of root and TS of stem. Any higher plants or any lower plants. But mesophyll cells are also present in all plants of the leaves. All plants of the leaves. These mesophyll cells are present in between of the upper epidermis and lower epidermis. But here palisade parenchyma and spongy parenchyma to be constituted within the mesophyll cells. By means in generally these mesophyll cells are made up of parenchyma tissues. So these parenchyma tissues of mesophyll cells are having so number of chloroplasts. So this chloroplast is always carry out photosynthesis at the same time to be appeared green in color and to be make a own their food material. So in this mesophyll cells mainly presence in upper epidermis and lower presence in lower epidermis. So hence upper epidermis is always green in color and lower epidermis is always dark green in color. Why? Because upper epidermis will be containing several chloroplasts, but lower epidermis will be containing smaller number of the chloroplast, less number of the chloroplast. So hence upper epidermis is always green in color, lower epidermis is always dark green in color. Next coming to mechanical tissues are very well developed in xerophytic plants. The mechanical tissues are very well developed. That is parenchyma and sclerenchyma both are very well developed. And vascular tissues are very well developed. What are the vascular tissues? That is xylem and phloem. So both xylem and both phloems are very well developed in xerophytic plants. This is very important character features are here. Mechanical tissues are very well developed in xerophytes, and vascular tissues are very well developed in xerophytes. Mechanical tissues, what are they? Mechanical tissues. So these mechanical tissues is always to give a mechanical support in the plant of the stem, in the plant of the branches. So that is parenchyma and sclerenchyma. What are they? Vascular tissues. That is xylem and phloem. What is the help of xylem and what is the help of phloem? Xylem is always transported of water and mineral nutrients from the root to entire of the plant body. What is the help of phloem? The phloem is always transported of food material from the leaves to entire of the plant body. This is the importance of vascular tissues, and also this is the importance of mechanical tissues. Okay now, so totally described about the xerophytes, that is classification of xerophytes, and enumerate the morphological adaptations in xerophytes, and list out the anatomical adaptations in xerophytes. Okay now, this is about the xerophytes. Okay now, thank you. Hi students, completed in what are the character features of hydrophytes and what are the character features of xerophytes. Today we are going to discuss about some important notes on ecological adaptations. Dear students, in generally based on the habitats, plants are mainly three types. They are namely, first one halophytes, second one heliophytes, okay now, third one zeophytes. What is the meaning of halophytes? Given the example for halophytes. What is the meaning of heliophytes? Given the example for heliophytes. What is the meaning of zeophytes? Given the examples for zeophytes. Now, dear students, halophytes by means the type of plants, especially terrestrial soil plants or land plants that can tolerate the salinities of the sea, salinities of the sea, near the seas and near the oceans, near the seas and near the oceans. Some of the plants are grown. So these plants are named as halophytes. So that is tolerate the salinities. Salinities means salt water. Salt water. Some plants are also grown in salt water. That is named halophytes. That is named halophytes. Okay now. The type of land plants that can tolerate the salinities of the sea are called halophytes. The sea of water, the ocean of water would be containing salt or would be containing sodium carbonate. Anyhow, some of the plants are grown near the seas and near the oceans. The example for here, Rhizophora and Avicennia. So these plants are commonly known as mangrove plants. Mangrove plants. So Rhizophora and Avicennia both are mangrove plants, such as the halophytes. Such as the halophytes. So short form, in some plants are grown in salty areas. That is called halophytes. Given the examples for here in mangrove plants such as Rhizophora and Avicennia. Rhizophora and Avicennia. Next, coming to heliophytes. So most of the plants are grown in direct sunlight. Most of the plants are grown in direct sunlight are called heliophytes. 70% of the plants are grown is always depend upon to the sunlight to be make a own their food materials. So these plants are named as heliophytes. Okay now. So most of the plants grown in direct sunlight are called heliophytes. Given the examples for here, some of the tridents, Gaddi chamanti, sunflower, Produtirigudu, and most of the grass plants such as rice, wheat, maize, and sugarcane. Both are the heliophytes. Don't confuse over here. This is a halophytes and this is a heliophytes. So halophytes, given example for here, Rhizophora and Avicennia. But here heliophytes examples, tridents, mainly sunflower and grass plants. So halophytes means the type of plants that can tolerate the salinities of the sea are called halophytes. Halophytes are some plants generally grown in salty areas is also. And most of the plants are grown in direct sunlight are called heliophytes. That is halophytes. This is a heliophytes. Okay now. Next, coming to zeophytes. Some plants grown in sandy places. Sandy places are called zeophytes. So some of the small near the banyan tree, near the bamboo plant. Okay, now, and some of the smaller plants is always grown in larger plant. Grown in larger plant. That is, plants grown in sandy places are called xeophytes. Xeophytes. Examples are here: ferns, that is Funaria, ferns, and mosses. Mosses, best example, Funaria. Ferns, that is Terris lycopodium. Terris lycopodium. So these ferns and these mosses are smaller in plants. These smaller in plants are generally grown in larger size of the higher plants. Larger size of the higher plants. So lower plants, in generally some of the lower plants is always grown in larger size of the higher plants. Larger size of the higher plants, that is called xeophytes. The best examples are here ferns such as Terris lycopodium and Selaginella. Mosses, the best example are here Funaria and Polytrichum. Okay, now these are three types of plants. One is halophytes, second one is heliophytes, third one is xeophytes. Next, coming to what are the differences between population and community. Population and community. First of all, population means a group of similar individuals. A group of similar individuals. By means a group of similar kind of plants. Individual plant is one individual. Animal is another individual. Human being is another individual. So different individuals are grown in on their earth. Different individuals are grown in on their earth. So here a group of similar individuals belonging to the same species found in an area is called population. Plants is one population, animal is one population, human beings is also one population. So these kinds of individuals are grown in on the earth, are surrounding the environment. So dear students, a group of similar individuals, by means a group of similar plant individuals belong to the same species, found in an area is called population. Similar kind of the species are found in one area, that is called population. For example, human beings, SC population to be given one area, ST population to be given one area, BC population to be given one area. And the community and assemblies of all the population belong to different species occurring in an area is called community. So an assemblages of all the populations, plant population, animal population and a human being population belong to different species occurring in an area is called community. All over the BC community, SC community, ST community and the remaining OC community all are grouped together one area, that is community. So different communities are distributed by separated area, but all over the communities are distributed given one area, that is community. That is community. Okay, now this is a population, this is a community. Once again, population by means a group of similar individuals belonging to the same species found in an area, that is called population. But here community and assemblages of all the populations, and assemblages of all the population belong to not same species, different species occurring in an area, that is called community. These are the differences between population and community. To be applied, plant population, plant community, animal population, animal community, human being population and human being community. Next, coming to especially hydroponic plants, the xylem is always reduced. So that is hydrophytes show reduced xylem. Why? Because water absorption is all over the surface of the plant body, so hence xylem is reduced. In generally, all hydroponic plants or all aquatic plants are grown in water. So in this time, xylem is not required, xylem is not essential. Why? Because these plants is generally grown in water. So in this time, So this water molecules easily absorption of all over the surface of the plant body. So hence xylem is poorly developed, but phloem is relatively better developed. So hence xylem is totally reduced in all hydrophytic plants, in all aquatic plants. Okay now. Hydrophytes show reduced xylem. Okay now. Hydrophytes show reduced xylem. Why? Because water easily absorption all over the surface of the plant body. So hence xylem is reduced. In those of plants, Hydrilla, Fistia, Iconia, Wolffia, Lemna, Azolla, Vallisneria, Ceratophyllum and Limnophila, Photomosta. These are the examples for hydrophytic plants. So dear students, this is about the some important notes on ecological adaptations. Okay now, thank you.